Turning to politics, the Senate nears an agreement to prevent the debt crisis until December. A federal judge halts the Texas abortion law, and former President Trump dismisses the January 6th riot as a day of protesting, he says. And he says the real insurrection happened on November 3rd, the day of the 2020 election. Joining us now to unpack all of this and more is Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College, as she joins us every Thursday morning. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Giselle. Happy almost Friday.
Oh, gosh, we feel it, just as you do. So overnight breaking, a federal judge has blocked Texas's abortion ban, issuing a stinging rebuke saying the law is unconstitutional. How significant and what's next?
Well, this is a really significant disagreement with the state of Texas and also maybe with the Supreme Court. But at the end of the day, it is likely that this law in Texas will be upheld by the Fifth Circuit Court, which is the other court where this will already be appealed. Texas filed yesterday. All of this to say that the Fifth Circuit Court is the most conservative circuit court in the country. So this is a temporary victory for pro-choice advocates. And it is important to note that, as you pointed out, the judge said that this is a fundamental constitutional right. This is an Obama appointee, and it's likely to go up to the Supreme Court. And I would assume that the Texas ban will be upheld at that level.
Wow, that's saying something. All right, let's move on because there's a lot to get to today. Senate leaders reached that bipartisan agreement finally to defuse that debt limit crisis. Mitch McConnell did not lift, however, the block of a longer-term increase in that debt cap. Why did he blink?
You know, they kicked the can to December because nobody wants to be responsible for perhaps causing a recession. And that's what Janet Yellen says may happen if we cannot raise the debt ceiling. So this just extends the fight into December. It gives Democrats a little more time to convince Republicans, and it gives, of course, Republicans a little more time to convince Democrats or may do some grandstanding. This is pure partisan politics. It's a very high stakes game of chicken. What I expect will happen is that in December, the Democrats will use budget reconciliation to pass their budget and possibly include this. But if you recall, they can only use that budget reconciliation process that gets them around the filibuster once a year. And so Republicans are trying to put Democrats in that corner to use it. They want to use it on their budget. They don't want to use it on raising the debt ceiling. Perhaps they'll use it for both in December.
Wow. Okay, the president has conceded that his spending plan, however, has to shrink if there's anything that's going to get passed. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, members of his own party are pushing for this, right? So Biden is contending with this ambitious agenda, contending with Republican opposition, but it's really members of his own party that are causing him to scale back this $3.5 trillion bill, possibly down to about $2.3 trillion. And the members standing in the way are Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. These two senators are really pushing hard to make it a smaller bill. This is what we anticipated, that he started off with a very ambitious agenda that really catered to the progressives in his party, and it would be scaled back so that he could also appeal to centrists in his party.
Well, is he going to be able to bring Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema on board?
That's a tough call. So far, they're definitely making a name for themselves, going to the White House, negotiating. My guess would be that at the end of the day, if he actually makes cuts that big, that yes, they will capitulate and vote for this budget package.
Okay, let's move on to former President Trump. He recently took aim at the committee probing the January 6th Capitol attack, saying that the real insurrection happened on November 3rd, the presidential election, not on the attack on the Capitol, which he says was protesting the fake election results. What's the danger with that kind of rhetoric?
The danger of that kind of rhetoric is that it undermines our democracy in a fundamental way. If Americans don't believe, or a sizable number of Americans don't believe we have free and fair elections, then they've lost faith in our democracy and will act in ways that reflect that. And I would argue that the violent insurrection of January 6th reflected a way that folks were acting when they didn't believe in free and fair elections. So we have actually seen the damage caused by the big lie. And it is really disappointing to see it continue, given the threat that it poses to our democracy, given the violence that could ensue and has already ensued when people don't believe that their system of government is working.
All right. Mark Meadows, Steve Bannon, and others are supposedly not responding to subpoenas in the Capitol attack investigation. How do you hold them accountable if they're not going to, adhere to these subpoenas?
Well, the House committee that's investigating this will likely issue criminal citations, and that means that they could be arrested, right, and brought before the committee. Donald Trump is telling them not to appear before the committee. He is invoking executive privilege, except executive privilege does not exist for former presidents, and so he doesn't have any standing there. Biden has said he will not invoke an executive privilege. He wants an investigation, so they will likely appear before the committee.
And really quickly, Caroline, former Vice President Mike Pence, he's downplaying the January 6th riot, and he says he's now friends with the former president. What does that suggest to you?
Well, Pence said, that was just one day in January in a Fox News program a few nights ago. It was one day in January. It was one day when folks were calling for him to be hung, and they were hunting him down. And so I think Pence is in a tight position where he's not going to appeal to liberals. He's not going to appeal to centrists because of his association with Trump. And he's trying to build a political career on the right. I don't think he'll be successful in doing that, however.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much, as always, for your perspective and insight. There's a lot of complicated stuff to always maneuver and navigate, and you make it easy. Thank you so much. And we'll be right back. This is Your Morning on Spectrum News 1.